Hello and welcome to Better at HR in 10 Minutes, where we take a question for HR and in 10 minutes or less, we talk about it from the point of view of a trainer and from a point of view of a labor and employment law attorney. I'm the trainer. I'm Rodney Klein.
And I'm the employment law attorney. I'm Sarah Glasser. And keep in mind that the things that we talk about are not legal advice. I'm not your lawyer. We're just two friends hanging out over coffee. What's our question today, Rodney? You
I'm
have your
looking,
coffee?
I'm looking for my coffee.
I have
Um,
tea.
you know, we talk about a lot of different things over the months, but the one thing we really haven't talked about is age. And age is a big thing. I always say it's the one protected group that none of us like to admit that we're in, but we're all real happy we get there. And what do you think is when it comes to age issues in employment, what do you think is the biggest issue there?
So I think one of the most interesting things and challenging things about age as a protected class is that it is really the only protected class where it is kind of like socially acceptable to joke about it. We give our friends and sometimes our colleagues birthday cards or birthday cakes that talk about being over the hill, or we make jokes about how old we are. And for the most part, those jokes are socially acceptable. It's not okay to joke about race or sex or disability in the same way that we joke about age. And while that is okay in most people's personal lives, when you bring that stuff into the workplace and you start handing out birthday cards that make jokes about how old somebody is, especially when the supervisor has signed the birthday card, um, you set yourself up for claims of harassment based on age, or you've created evidence that the supervisor was aware of how old somebody was, and perhaps if they're the one of the people who's selected for a reduction in force or something like that, you've got all this like direct evidence of people talking about their age, which is the protected class. So I think the challenge is that our general sentiment about it means that we talk about it, and we talk about it in a way that is different from other protected classes.
I think it's interesting in the fact that not only is it that maybe the most socially accepted stereotype, but I think in a lot of ways we in HR kind of help perpetuate those stereotypes. A lot of us kind of embrace this generational differences training, and I just don't think that's a really good thing to do at all. There's like zero science that says this stuff works, and basically in order for generational differences to have any value, we have to be able to use it as a predictive tool. In other words, Rodney's 59 years old, so Rodney's going to behave in very specific ways in very specific workplace situations. Is any of that true? No, it's just not. We find it extremely difficult to predict people's behavior. Let me pitch this in a different way. We talk about the weather, right? We all try to predict the weather, and still, after all of these years, we can't predict the weather accurately more than a couple days or even a couple hours out. Why? Because even though we know all the rules that make up weather and we know all the data, right? We get real-time data from all over the globe 24 hours a day. The calculations are way too complex for us to do so that we can only project weather out so far. So let's look at human behavior. That's way more complicated than the weather. And we don't even know all the rules for human behavior. And even if we did, we couldn't gather all the data. And even if we had all of that, we couldn't do the calculations. They're too immense. We're too complex. And yet we're going to predict somebody's behavior with their age. Here's the part that makes this dangerous. And that is whenever we categorize people, we marginalize them, because all we've done is reduce them down to nothing more than their membership in a particular group. And everybody knows that's wrong. But yet we so freely do it when it comes to age. And I think we need to go back to thinking about people not in those groups, but instead as individual people with individual things that influence them and to motivate them.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to talk or train on how to interact with people, personality types, the way that you learn, the way that you communicate, the way that you address conflict, and that's the list goes on and on and on, that it's, from my perspective, kind of not just inefficient to do it based on generational stereotypes, but you're also, as you said, setting folks up to think about their colleagues in that way. I'm part of this group and you're part of that group, and suddenly now I'm going to treat you differently because you're not in my group. Why would we ever set people up to think that way?
What I think is funny now is that if you're a millennial, all the nasty stuff you hear today said about Gen Z people were said about you 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's me. So that's my bucket. I think they call me an elder millennial. Yeah.
Well,
Do you know what
good.
you are?
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
Well, good.
So
I don't
yeah,
want to know your bucket anyways. Okay.
no. But that's our topic for today. Hopefully that was helpful, and please let us know if we can be of any help.